Good afternoon. My name is Alena Shuatsova. I am an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. Today, I would like to talk to you about asylum proceedings and what happened to Affirmative Asylum Bulletin. What was happening for years in the United States is that there were more asylum cases than the officers were able to process, and that created a backlog. In 2014, to address the backlog, Obama administration decided that all the cases will be scheduled according to the timeline when they were received. What it meant is that the cases that would be filed first would be scheduled for an interview first. This, however, of course, did not resolve the problem, and what happened was that all the cases now were pending for a very long time, and a person would have to wait for his asylum interview for 2.5 or 3 years on average. Even though the law says, because I had some clients saying, hey, the law says I have to receive my interview within 60 days or 180 days, even though the law said that asylum interview was supposed to be scheduled and decision was supposed to be made within, I believe, 6 months, this was not the case. Hence, there was Affirmative Asylum Bulletin. It was an approximate schedule as to when an applicant would be able to go and see an officer and talk about his or her asylum claim. And of course, an applicant before going for an interview would receive a notice of an interview, and usually the notice would be in about 2.5, I believe it's like 22 days before the interview, but the person would wait for that interview for about 2.5, 3 years. So recently, new administration decided to address the issue. And the way that they decided to solve the issue is not to schedule all the cases first, but to schedule the more recent cases first. So what's going to happen now is that cases that were filed and were pending 21 days and less will be scheduled first. And according to some reports, the interview will happen within about 6 weeks after filing. And those cases that were already pending for a long time will be pending for even longer. I'm not sure how exactly it's going to solve the entire problem, because for all the cases it will create even a longer backlog. But the administration hopes that with this new rule, less people will start applying for asylum, because now they will not stay in the United States for years with an employment authorization waiting for the cases to be called for an interview. However, what I see an issue with that is this: even if you put the person fast through affirmative asylum proceedings, and affirmative asylum proceedings, it means when the person who is not in deportation files for asylum and waits for his or her decision without courts being involved. So even if you try to address this issue of asylum cases fast on this initial stage of affirmative asylum application, let's say the decision was made in 2-3 months after the person filed for the asylum case, what's going to happen for many cases, because many cases that are referred to court, this is the reality, there is still backlog in courts. So unless these two systems are addressed simultaneously, what's going probably to happen is that even if the person will go swiftly through the affirmative asylum stage, the person is probably going to face even longer delays in immigration courts, unless, of course, administration will somehow find another solution to address that. So what happened? Basically, affirmative asylum bulletin does not exist anymore, and cases that, as I said before, are pending for 21 days and less will be scheduled first, and cases that were rescheduled, where the interview was scheduled but the person asked to reschedule, will be scheduled also as a priority, and all the other cases will be scheduled afterwards. Now, you need to keep in mind one thing. If before, prior to this change, a person would first file an application and then let's say a very simple application, and then would work on collecting the evidence and present this evidence during the interview, before the interview. Now, probably the best practice would be, because there will be no time to collect evidence, to work on a case and present the entire case at once. So it's always a good practice to do that, but that's now, people should know that if they hope to collect evidence and present evidence later, they might be able to do that only in court if they will not be successful during the asylum interview stage. So this is where we stand right now. We will see how it's going to be implemented, what the real effects of all this changes will be. But as of now, just remember, if you're planning on filing asylum case in the United States now, be expected to go through the system as promised within about 6 weeks. If you have more questions, you are welcome to visit our website at www.shautsova.com. Thank you.